You said it's being broadcast by FM as well?
Yeah, we have the FM antenna for Eichmont one, I think it's within a couple hundred meters of the place. So, and I think we're.
Are we ready?
Oh, here comes Andy.
Here comes Andy.
That's right there, sir, next to
Okay.
Mrs. Lyles.
Well, not right next to Miss Lyles.
Close.
6.5 feet away.
There he is.
All right. I'd like to call the meeting of the Oconee County Planning Commission to order, Monday, March the 18th, 2020. Ms. Lyles, if you would do the invocation, please.
Dear Lord, we come to you today just asking you to be with us through this meeting, Lord. Just help us to conduct the business of our county, Lord, with all of our citizens in mind, Lord. Just help us to watch out for one another, help this pandemic to pass, Lord, and keep our citizens safe. And we just ask that you let us conduct this business in a way that would be pleasing to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Mr. Pearson, if you would do the lead us in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We do have one public comment, non-agenda items. Mr. Barnett says if the public cannot be in these chambers, then the boards, committees, and commissions should also not be allowed in. Personal property rights are sacred to the foundation of America, and without property rights, we lose the country. And that is the only non-agenda item comment. Is there a comment from any of our commission?
I'd like to make a correction on your date. This is May instead of March. The agenda is incorrect.
It is. You're dead dumb. Yes, sir.
Well, we may.
Thank you, sir. All right.
I do have one thing, Gwen. I too would like to see us try to find a way for the public to be able to come in. I hate doing the public's business without the public involved.
Okay. And that is on record?
Well, I've got a small comment on that. Have we ever had 10 people here? We've got plenty of room to socially distance, say 40, 50 people. Is there any reason we don't?
At the moment, because of all the unknowns, we didn't want to have it be like, this is the one meeting where we're talking about the census and we have 40 people show up here. So the intent was, there's nothing real heavy on the agenda and it's nothing that we can't revisit. So having it closed off and not getting everyone who's vulnerable to it exposed is probably for the best at the moment. But I think at the end of this month, they'll reassess and look towards reopening, as it were.
So it's not a legal liability reason. It's, right now, it's still just simply a concern.
Right. Because, well, we just don't want to pass around to each other, really. That's
Yeah, and I think the greatest concern is that someone would carry it home to a more vulnerable person. Not that they are here are vulnerable, but they might carry it home to someone who is. So, all right. I hope everyone has read the minutes. Any comments or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Gwen,
Yes, sir.
if everybody will turn to item 10 on those minutes there, we're going to talk about that, and we're probably going to refer back to that, so.
Oh, okay, yeah, the revision of that
Yeah.
motion, yes. All righty. The county operations update, if you read over your, all of your complimentary material with everything that is going on, Adam, is there anything that you particularly wanted us to know? Anything that you particularly wanted us to pay attention to?
Sure, so the biggest thing is that even though since for the last 2 months now, all of our services have been available with the exception of the park service and the library. And even those are back in some way, shape or form. But even though the building's been closed, every service that you need, there's nothing that you couldn't have done on January 1 that you couldn't do right now. Like you are completely able to do all the functions of government. It's a little bit different than you're used to. And it's maybe not face to face. Maybe you're having to call in, or even like we've been having a lot of meetings on the porch, on the front step there, just going out of the building to talk to people. So every service is available. I mean, as far as paying taxes, meeting with people, I mean, we're not closed for business. It's just a different way of doing business. And as far as the parks and library go, all of their information is in that material. They're staging and they're opening up slowly. The tornado was the other big event. These are the official numbers from of what got damaged and all of the homes. I don't have any other statistics as far as volunteers or other. I just know that we have a bunch of people working to get people who had damaged homes fixed up in some way, shape, or form through FEMA or through the Seneca Tornado Fund or through various other ways.
Does anybody have anything to add to that or comment on that?
I do have one more question as far as this simply as a county building. I know that I've talked to several businesses who've added cleaning services where once a week they're coming in and trying to do some sanitizing project that they've outlined in those businesses. Have the county offices done anything like that as far as additional sanitation or anything like that?
So all of the offices,
Sanitation, sanitizing?
sanitizing probably, all the offices have, as part of the stockpile, we got like thousands of gallons of sanitizer. And all offices haven't been doing it on a daily basis. I believe, I don't want to speak for administration, but I'm fairly sure they have some sort of cleaning protocols put into whenever we do reopen to the public.
I was just wondering, since we were talking about having people here, what kind of measures have been put in place or do measures need to get put in place in order to be able to allow that to start happening again?
Well, we've been wiping down all these surfaces before the meetings, and we've been, so in council chambers, y'all are good. As far as the rest of the building, I don't think there's anything 100% in place, but I'm pretty sure they're working on something.
No, I came by and voted a couple times, and they're very, very careful, and they're giving you, wiping down all the surfaces, et cetera. So they are working very hard at trying to keep the area so-called sanitized.
Okay, I got a question about the tornado. What are they doing with all the mulch and where are they putting it?
I know a lot of it's over here right next to Zaxby's in West Union.
Are they gonna give it to county residents that want it, or are they gonna charge them for it?
I believe in this, I don't 100% know. I know that it's all green mulch, so to speak. So they're gonna have something to do with it. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know whether it's once we contract with someone, it's up to them to get rid of it or what. I don't have a solid answer.
Just off of.
16 acres, about 2 dump trucks high, for sure.
I didn't know what they were gonna do.
As soon as we find out, I'll definitely let y'all know.
Yeah, I hope they don't pay to haul it off if there's a lot of residents that could use it.
We could use it around here.
I feel sure that they'll probably, she's opened up the facilities locally several times and given away free mulch, when they got backlogged on it. So I'm sure she would probably consider this backlogged as soon as, it's probably got something to do also with permission to move things once stuff is handled. Because, I think they ran out of room, right? At one point, that's why they started having to truck it to, West Union,
They
because
still have plenty of room on Wells Highway. They're mulching
they couldn't
the
do
big
everything.
piles that they've got there, and
Yeah.
they've been moving some of it, but I just didn't know where they're moving it to, so.
Okay, Mr. Adams, I'm gonna let you go walk us through this clarification of motions and motions to rescind stage, section 8.
Sure. So as you all, I'm sure, go to the tape after each meeting to kind of cheek yourself, as I do. There was a little bit of back and forth at the very last meeting we had, where a motion was made, seconded, voted on, and then right after it was voted on, Mr. Pearson made a motion to rescind that, because there was just a little bit of confusion during that motion. And so the motion was regarding performance standards for specific uses in the county. Mr. Smith made the motion to go forward with this and set priorities and devise a letter for council, seconded by Mr. Johnson, approved 5-2 with Mr. Pearson and Mrs. Lyles voting against it. You all then had a brief conversation and realized, like, whoa, we kind of stepped a little further than we wanted to. So then Mr. Pearson made the motion to rescind, and it was seconded by Mr. Grambling, and then that was voted on to rescind that motion. However, our rules of order state that only people who have voted in favor of a motion can rescind the motion. So I should not have let it go on after Mr. Pearson made that motion. So it can still happen, it's just Mr. Pearson and Ms. Lyles cannot motion or second it. So basically what I'd like to do is go ahead and.
I move to rescind.
So you can move to rescind it, yes, sir. And then it would be a second, and a vote to rescind it, just not from Mr. Pearson or Ms. Lyles.
I'll second it.
And is there some discussion?
And as I understand it, it was a 7-0 that we all voted to rescind it.
Yes.
Now, would you like to have a discussion at this point, since we kind of pulled in, we can still have a discussion about it if you'd like to, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Smith.
I brought it forward because I'm trying really hard to work with the county council and let them know what direction that we're going in. And that was one of my purposes. And I think that what really threw it into a tailspin was when I said I had a phrase of ask for their input. I think that was what really sent it into a tailspin. But my whole purpose is we have sent letters to the county council before. I know we have. And they have sent letters to us. And I just want to be sure that we're working with them and we're not distancing ourselves from them. But we did get by setting some priorities of some topics that we're going to discuss and try to deal with, so that's really good. That was my main reason for this motion, but it was a period of time before, and my memory is not as good as it used to be, frankly. That's just my comments.
Any further comments?
So I think what we did, didn't we, instead of asking them to set priorities, we set priorities
Yes.
and then we'll move into those individually and send them to council as we do them, correct? I mean, wasn't that the
I believe
kind
that.
of the follow-up
That was our
discussion?
feeling, yes,
Yeah, I
which
think
was why we decided to rescind the motion to sort of get their input.
I think some of the discussion was leaning toward, we don't have to ask council about things we're doing. We do what our job is outlined as, and we don't need to be sending council everything, little notes that, hey, we're doing this, what do you think about it? You know, we do our job, and most of the council, at least the ones I know, watch our video, our YouTube channel anyway, so they know what we're doing, they keep up with it, and it doesn't hurt to send when we do something that's real important that we need their guidance on, it might be all right to send them something, but for what we were doing on this particular instance, we didn't need their guidance, we just need to do our job and make all these things and send it to them, because we knew they'd already give us a direction to go, so we just needed to go in that direction, and I didn't feel that we needed to keep sending letters to them about everything we're doing, because they've got their own problems with trying to run the county. We just need to do what our job is entailed and do it and send it to them and let them approve it or disapprove it, or send it back to us and say, we didn't like this. And that's what we're supposed to do, instead of sending letters to them all the time. That was some of the things I remember.
I feel like our agenda should be driven by the public, what the public wants, what the public needs, not what the council wants or what the council needs. We're supposed to be here doing the job of the county, of the the people of the county. And they have the ultimate decision, but we're supposed to do what the citizens ask us to do, or what we see needs done, and then send it to them and they vote on it and decide whether they're gonna accept it or not. Instead of us saying, well, what do you want us to do? I mean, I just don't think we should be getting our direction straight from them. We should be getting it from the people.
And we get to leave all the politics out of this. They can deal with the politics. We just deal with the public. We don't have to deal with the politics of everything.
Yeah, we're supposed to be looking 25 years down the road, not to the next election. So,
So are we ready to vote?
yeah, I was gonna say, is everybody ready to vote?
Yeah.
All right, and so the motion is that we rescind the motion to send the county council a letter cluing them in on what we are working on.
5 that voted before for it are the only ones that can vote.
No, everybody can vote now.
Everybody can vote.
All right?
Okay.
Everyone can vote on it, only the people who voted in the affirmative can actually start that process to make.
Gotcha.
So, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? None? All right, Census 2020 update.
All right. If I may. Okay, we have, the census is going on still, both in paper and in digital format. I hope you all have filled out your census, it's super important. This graph here is as of May 14th, so 4 days old. Across the US, just under 60% has responded. Oconee County, we're just over 50%. The Fall Creek, the closest to Key is a lump area for the Census Bureau. They kind of clump all that area in, and they're about 61%. And everywhere else, I mean, Seneca's doing real well. I mean, given everything, Seneca's doing great. Walhalla and Westminster are chugging along. West Union and Salem have the lowest of the two response rates. I did have a chance to speak with Mayor Oliver of West Union, and she's trying to push out as much as she can for West Union.
Is Salem maybe due to an internet access?
There could be a drag on that, but the city of Salem, they're all comprehensive plan meetings. The city of Salem was on it. I mean, they showed up. Like, they're an involved populace.
Yes.
And they went so far for the census as they put out mailers in all their utility bills.
Yeah.
And we gave them some banners to hang up. So there's probably some drag on the paper ballots getting in, and also with the library being closed, access to internet as well. So I think there's a possibility for that. But I would see them kind of spiking up as time goes on.
Any further comments?
August 14th is the last day for the census, so it did get expanded out. So if you have anyone who hasn't done it, kind of poke them a little bit. Say, hey, do it. Yeah, that's the census update.
All right. Okay, Planning and Economic Development Committee update on the corridors.
So, all right, planning and economic development. So there was, over the course of the last several months, more than that, some back and forth regarding the planning commissions that are in the corridors. Because we did the 123 corridor, we sent it along, we had some direction for planning and economic development. There's a lot of steps. So at the last planning and economic development meeting, which was in February, they made this motion. I'm gonna read it to you and then I'll explain it. So the motion was for here it is. The motion was for the staff to take the lead on corridor plan development and return the specifics to the Planning and Economic Development Committee. That is coupled with the request that the Planning Commission not overlap or duplicate efforts of staff, but to the extent it does, supplement or assist staff. So what was asked from Planning and Economic Development is for administration and ourselves to give them Planning and Economic Development the plan for them to send to planning commission. So that was the last ask of them. And for Mr. Gramley, Mrs. Lyles, and Mr. Johnson, during the meetings that we had earlier, I'd shown you the Destination Oconee booklet and given it to them. And that's all that I'm really had planned to show them anyhow. So at the last planning economic development meeting, I did this presentation for them, which I've included here. And all it is Destination Oconee on a PowerPoint. I haven't really tailored it too much. So the purpose of this is just to tell you all where we are on the steps. So we can certainly work on the corridors, but planning economic development meeting, the next one is going to be in July. They want to have it and then send something to planning commission. And so this is what I showed them back in February. Doesn't mean we can't work on it together. It just means that they want, planning economic development wants it directly from us, from staff.
So planning and economic development wants something from staff so that they can turn around and give a directive request to planning commission to work on something. The last I saw, it looked like that staff, obviously being overwhelmed with a jillion objectives, it was laying out some very generic, here's what this county does, here's what this county does. Is that correct? As far as kind of what you're pulling together to get over there to them?
So that was initially like the thought, okay, we're gonna get, see what all these different counties are doing, cities are doing, and then try to put them all together, kind of Frankenstein them together. And then someone just kind of said, hey, you got Destination Oconee, it's already been, liked by some people, just use that because it has those model ordinances in the back of it. So that's what we ended up doing, is taking the Destination Oconee and just taking it out of the 11 by 17 format and making it 8.5 by 11.
And you're going to submit that to them, or you already have submitted it? You're going to submit it in July? I'd like us to be able to review that before at one time anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a problem. And a lot of it, because a lot of the focus of Destination Oconee was on the municipalities, a lot of it doesn't make sense. So I did go through and all the buildings have to line up. That's obviously it's not functional for 60 miles of roadway for all the buildings to line up on the face. In a downtown city like in Walhalla or Ramcat Alley, that makes sense, but not out in the county. So I did delete some portions of it, but I didn't get too heavy-handed on it. So there's definitely room to negotiate inside these things.
The only reason I say it that way is that my concern after sitting in several meetings is we made a determination that it seemed like different areas of the counties have different needs with regards to road systems, whether some was more emphasize safety, some more emphasize aesthetics, some more emphasize functionality, whatever it might be. My fear is that if we make it too general, that economic development will, let me take that back. What I would like to do is point out some of those differences towards economic development so that when they come back and ask us to review it, that those may already be in place to look at this through the lens of these different aspects, as opposed to, oh, this county looks good, why don't y'all do something that mimics this?
One thing that I think, the main thing we got decided in the subcommittee was Highway 11 is already regulated adequately, and we weren't going to address any new insults to it.
Right. And then in this, it specifically has stuff for Highway 11.
So so we had that conversation, then I went back to DOT. 11, this is the one up there, y'all can't see it, but it's the first page, it has the Cherokee Foothills Scenic Highway. The only regulation 11 has on it is on billboards and junkyards. And that's fine. So in the initial ask for this, it had to be 8 months ago, they laid out 11, 28, 76, 123, and 130. We all talked about other ones, which we could certainly add. But the initial ask was for these 5 corridors, so that's why I presented it to them, because that's what I was asked to do. So But yeah, no,
And again, I would love it if our committee would get back together and present maybe first to ask that we give that to staff to move forward with, because that way we can say, yes, we saw these 5 corridors, we put them in this priority, and we added 3 more corridors that may be priority, and we think that each one of those may have a different function of importance, so that at least economic development sees that and maybe works under the thought that each quarter may have its own needs and not a one-size-fits-all for the county.
That's fine, yeah, we could certainly, we can start meeting, I didn't have that meeting today, just because between the voting and everything being, it's been a couple months, so I figured we just do this.
Well, and it doesn't sound like that we need to go so far as to what we were trying to do before with actually coming up with structure. It sounds like we just need to meet and see what staff is presenting and ask staff to add these things to it.
And edit, I mean, red line, everything's in pencil, we can
Yeah,
red
'cause
line the heck
just-
out of it.
Do
On
y'all
this one
have
right
copies
here.
of Destination Oconee? I don't mean to interrupt you. Do you all have
We
copies
do.
of that?
Mhm. And I do want to look through that as well.
Well,
And I'll
just
send you the-
on this one right here for, like you, specifically for Highway 11 traffic impact study, that's money we don't need to spend, because the only issue we have on there, we have some fatalities, but it's because of the speed. We can't fix that. People have got to stop speeding. We can't fix that. I mean, there's a lot of issues they want us to address that we can't fix. And no amount of money is gonna make these people slow down unless you put a red light every 2 seconds.
Oh, they'll run them.
Yeah, I mean,
So the traffic impact study would be for the individual business owners, right? It wouldn't be for like the county to do one. That, I guess, I had a little spiel before this, when I presented it, but yeah, traffic impact study where if you were to put like a real estate office in, if I may, you do a traffic impact study. If they said if DOT says you need a turn lane, then you put a turn lane in, kind of thing.
So if they put a hotel 5 miles into Oconee County on Highway 11, there would be a traffic impact study.
That would be the intent of this, or if they put a gas station in, or business, not residential, not agriculture. My one big, I think my other top of it, the exempt from all this would be farms and agriculture, ag business. But I mean, there's certainly things we can look at. I mean, I took exactly what was in Destination County and just made it in a readable format.
just one thing, in our current economy, we don't need to be adding any kind of cost to anybody right now, or we're not gonna have any growth back in our county. We've got to keep the costs down with the economy like it is. It's not the time to be adding fees.
So all I want to do is just have a meeting to be able to review what staff is talking about sending up in July, us adding to that or taking away from that, either as a subcommittee or as a planning commission agenda one night. So that staff could then say, hey, here's what we were presenting, here's some things that the planning commission maybe even made some suggestions on before y'all take over this and start working on it.
Do we need a motion to,
Since we already have
Or attend the meeting.
the subcommittee on the calendar and there's already been notified. I mean, like I said, I just canceled it for tonight because we all haven't been around for a while. It just kind of, to me, it made more sense just to have this one meeting. We can just start again for the first meeting in June. Or if you all wanna, I can email you what I have and or I can print it up and you all can thumb through it before the next time as well, if you all will do that. But yeah, we can still we don't need any sort of motion, we're still, we already motioned it, we created it, we don't have to.
And would everybody prefer that we still meet as a subcommittee and then bring it in?
What I was thinking is it would be really nice would it be possible, not at the next meeting, but at the last one in June, for the committee to have met and made comment on the additional corridors you wanted to add, and then you all come and share with the whole commission what it is that y'all have put together, and then Mr. Chapman could share what he is fixing to present to council, Is that correct? You would be doing that at the July meeting?
I was just checking to make sure we have the time, but I think, yeah, we can do that because there's a fifth week in June, or this portion of the fifth week in June. So, yeah, we would have the time. So our meetings in June are the 1st and the 15th of June. So, yeah, we could definitely do that. And if, right, and I believe the planning and economic development meeting is the 6th or the 7th. Let me check real quick. I just got an email about that.
And then you could go to the Planning and Economic Development Committee with the full endorsement of the Planning Commission as our recommendation. Does that make sense? Would that help?
I would like if you all are going to be involved with it, that one or more of you go and speak on the behalf of the Planning Commission, just because it's.
Right.
What days is their meetings on?
This one will be on 6/2, July 2nd.
July?
At what
2nd?
time?
6th is June. 6th is June.
July 7.
Sorry,
Second, I
sorry,
think you said.
my bad. July 21st, I'm sorry. So we actually have plenty of time to work on this. So July 21st is when that's planning, it's at 4 or 4:30, and I'll give you more definite details.
Who's on that committee, do you know?
Yes, it's Mr. Elliott, Mr. Kane, Mr. Diggs.
There's no public, there's nobody except council members on that committee?
That is correct. That's just one of the standing committees of council, share,
I think
police.
Paul is the chairman of it.
I believe that's correct. Certainly, we'll meet up, so then we'll just continue our 4 o'clock meeting like we had before for the next planning commission, before the next planning commission. And I'll give you what we have, and I'll email that stuff to you tomorrow.
All right, is that good? Everybody good with that? All right, Mr. Chapman, the Brasstown Falls upgrade, everybody had that in your supplementary materials. I think it looks neat.
So if I may, so from time to time I get required letters, either from FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulation Committee, or from the U.S. Park Service, the Andrews Dickens Ranger District, looking for input. And oftentimes it's in municipalities or it's outside of our jurisdiction. This is inside our jurisdiction, and has anybody here been to Brasstown Falls?
Yes.
A long time ago?
I took the kids one time, and it's not an easy hike.
It's not an ADA compliant trail by any means. It's awesome though. So the Park Service is using some funds they have, and Robbie Sitzler is the Chief Ranger, which is a cool name for a job title, Chief Ranger. And they want any input on basically making the trail better, having a couple platforms, kind of like similar to like Whitewater Falls, and making the trail more accessible. Not cutting off any access, but just, it's a very high angle climb
It's a
down.
goalie.
Yeah, I mean, it's built on the side of the waterfall, which is fine. I was there 2 weeks ago, and it's fun going out with kids. Right, 6-year-old? You have
Yeah,
well,
we have 4.
You got a baseball game.
yeah. So they're looking for any input that we need. Emergency services, I spoke with Mike Carroll from Emergency Services. They want to see it make sure that it's as accessible as possible for their gators and ATVs to go rescue the inevitable person who slips off the falls, unfortunately. So they want to have it be accessible. So if you all, as a planning commission, have any thoughts on this or want to comment, or kind of like, hey, it would be great if, then the Park Service is looking for that kind of input.
Oh, what's our authority there?
Our authority is none. It's inside the park. They would just, as we're all in the same area together, they're just looking for our input. We do provide rescue services there, police powers, but not like the planning commission doesn't have it. They simply ask for the planning commission.
This is basically a federal project, and
It is.
we won't be monetarily involved.
Outside of which paying income taxes, no, sir.
Because, I mean, it's the people that walk to the falls are the ones that created the trail, right? I mean, basically.
Pretty
It's never been cut out or,
Water
I think
runoff.
some of the neighbors used to
Water runoff.
periodically
Yeah.
go up there and clean up a little, something that fell.
It's
and
nice
wash.
once you're in there, but it's not an easy.
It's not easy,
track.
no, it's, you can tell it's done by the people that walk it.
Horseback is even rough.
So it appears that they want to create a proper parking area and maybe pull the trail a little bit off of where it is, like bring it a little off the water, because
Yeah, the edges,
It's-
too close to the edge.
it's right there. And put a couple of viewing platforms and still allow access to the lower falls, not cut off access, which was a big thing for me when I first saw this. Cause like, I don't want them to take away access, everyone has to stay on this portion of it, cause it's a super neat little area. So outside of emergency services input, which I'll pass it along to them. Yeah, it's more informational, or if you all have any thoughts on it, we can certainly write a letter up and get it over to them.
So they are planning on doing this. This is just a matter of, hey, this would be nice too, kind of comments.
Yeah, they need to, as per some policy or guideline, they have to reach out to the local jurisdictions and the local populace. So they'll do posting, they'll have public meetings about what they're doing, their new way of doing agroforestry, their new way of doing silviculture. This just kind of came across my desk a month ago, or whatever the date on it is. And I thought this would be interesting for you all to see as far as what's progressing in the county and what they're actually doing. So if somebody tells you, hey, what's going on over there? You all kind of know what's happening.
Thank you.
Sort of like the work at
Neat
the
project.
airport. It's gotta be done, so, but they have to tell people they're doing it.
Oh, yes, that is correct. Like that, any airport expansions or things of that nature.
All right, USDA Community Compost and Food Waste Reduction. Hope everybody had a chance to look over that. I think it would be awesome if the county could get involved in one of these grants. Not a whole lot of money, considering it's a national prospect, but, I think it'd be cool if we could figure out a way to recycle food waste.
Who writes the grants for us?
Sure.
Who will write this grant?
We have a grant writer here in the county. She would
I
probably,
know, and she's still here around here? I mean,
Not the same one, it's the little blonde, young
Okay, they've got-
lady in administrative office.
Yeah.
she's been here about right at a year, right, I think? Mhm.
Okay, she would write this grant,
Yes.
okay.
I'm sure, and I'm, several of us, I'll be honest, have indicated that we would be more than willing to help if there was anything that she needed, not that we could help, but, farmers are really good at composting stuff in this county, are they not? So, it would be, we talk about recycling, you don't have to worry about a use for this. You recycle glass and plastic. If you don't have a market for the product, it's hard to encourage people to recycle. But compost is something that people hopefully will get involved in and want to use, so. Any questions?
There's very little, food waste in my house.
If I can.
Yes, sir.
So, under different circumstances, I would have brought this to the Ag Board and had them send it to our, Police, Safety, and Solid Waste Committee of Council. However, was released not too long ago, and it closes off in a fairly short time, so that time frame isn't there. So it wouldn't necessarily usually come to planning commission to send along, that's just why it happens to be here. So what we could do for it is, anyone who wants to is obviously can apply for it. If we wanna send this on to council and say, hey, council, this could be something that's interesting, a project that, we or the Ag Board, Planning Commission or Ag Board or someone else could work on this grants with, this would be a good idea. I don't think the Planning Commission as a body itself can apply for a grant. But, we're not set up for that really. That's the issue. We could probably in the future, but not today.
Is that something solid waste would be interested in?
With the fact that there's a part of this that says reducing, stuff going to the landfills, yeah, I certainly would. So that's where I would recommend sending it to, except they don't meet till the end of July, and this grant closes at the end of
June 26th.
At the end of June.
So how does this actually work? How do they collect the food?
Well, that would all be part of the research that was required to write the grant, which was, why, for me, she would have to have a lot of backup help. I can't imagine a single person being able to get that research done, and it would take some very creative people. Municipal food waste, would that include the hospital? Schools,
Schools, yeah, I'd probably at this point in time stay away from the hospital.
not the hospital? Probably true.
I think schools would be a huge contributor.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the food they're wasting
Yeah.
now.
And restaurants, I know also, the catch is you've got to come up with some way, because I know in the schools, the biggest problem is separating the food waste from the kids just tend to dump everything in one thing, and then you don't have you no
But
longer
there's a-
have food waste.
But there's a lot of food waste from the kitchen side as well, because they're not allowed to take that food home or give it to anybody that hasn't paid for it. So there's a lot of waste there.
Yeah,
Well, and trays and things can be biodegradable, I would imagine, to some degree. I mean, they use milk cartons, aren't those?
well, then you get into
Somewhat.
cost, because all those biodegradable things are more expensive than, especially now, where there's such a difference between biodegradable versus compostable. It's totally two different things.
I don't know what, did
You
they?
need to stay
we
with
used to have the
completely
trays that you
organic
dump. I don't remember what they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
now.
stuff for
Now, it's
compost.
mostly styrofoam, to be honest. The schools use mostly styrofoam. They don't have the big
We used to have the
dishwasher
trays
anymore.
that you dumped and turned in.
That's what the elementary school does.
Do that. It's been a long time since
I
I've
don't
been in the
remember.
school, so I don't know, but the last few years that I was at West Oak, everything was served on a styrofoam tray, and that is not biodegradable. So, somebody but like you said, the kitchen part could do that. I would think that the restaurants would be more than happy to, especially if they knew they could get maybe something back, like mulch for their landscaping, or, that's a lot of work for somebody, but it's a neat initiative.
Or jail,
Is there-
too. Sorry, go ahead.
That's right, our jail.
And you all may be able to answer this. Is there a rule or a liability? My daughter has gone to the stores on several occasions where they're throwing their vegetables in the trash that are rotting, and she wanted them for their hogs, and the grocery stores can't, at least they're claiming they can't give those things. They have to throw them away. Is that, again, law, USDA stuff that's set up, or is that liability risk for those grocery stores?
Well, Tiger King fed all his tigers with Walmart meat, so I don't know if you've seen that.
I would think it's probably a liability issue for food poisoning, that kind of thing.
And I'm gonna say it's a DHEC issue too, because I believe, they are allowed to, but the person who is taking it to feed to the animals must be guaranteed that it will be inside to a certain temperature. The same way silage has to be done that kills bacteria, so that it's not passed on then to the pigs, so we don't end up with the COVID virus here.
So would that be something that this grant would be looking at as far as,
You'd have to get procedures for handling, and at what point, who picks it up, where it goes after it's picked up, how long it stays there, what the procedure is to actually turn it into compost. Because like just with our chickens, when I pick up dead chickens, they go into the compost pile. There's litter already in there. The chickens go in there. You put more litter on top of them. You have to roll those. It has to keep a certain temperature. It has to be at a certain percentage of moisture in it. And all this has to be inspected by DHEC whenever they so decide to come and inspect. So, and then, at some point, it becomes fertilizer. So, it's a long process. It's not just pile it in a pile and wait for it to rot. It has to be moved, and so
Has to be aerated, has to have a certain moisture.
Yeah, so, you'd have to have somebody would have to do all this stuff. So it would be a department that we would have to involve, whether it's solid waste or whoever, would have to be in charge of
gotcha.
doing it all.
Yeah, it would have to be a part of a landfill, probably, initiative somewhere.
It says cooperative agreement led by local government, so that could mean anything, you could cooperate with, whether it's the farmers, with whoever it is, it could be passed through. I mean, the way this is written, it gives you tons of room to be creative with the language. And
But the magnitude of the research that it's gonna take to pull it together
That's the key.
sort of
to
tells you
all
that they
these.
really didn't want to spend that $900,000, but, it sounds good, and if somebody was really creative, it would,
something that we could, so if you all wanted to, you could say, hey, council, I mean, unfortunately, we won't have the solid waste meeting, which where this should go to. I would think that would be my opinion on it. But to council saying, hey, I know this is another grant, but we have some thoughts on it, and would the county be interested in applying for this if you all saw fit? We get together with Swain, still, who's the gentleman who gave us bachelor's degree on solid waste.
It's a month month to write the grant to get accepted, then you have to start it in October.
it might be, and I'll try to do that, I should have done it already. Go to these things, because a lot of times once something like this is established, it becomes a rolling grant. So that it's in every bill from then on, and it continues, based on how successful it is for one. But they do roll, they're in there every year, year after year after year, if they're successful. So that might be something we need to find out. But you say what we need to do is ask council if they would be interested in?
Right, because if we all, just looking at the two farmers here, if you all have a thought on a project and then want to bring it up as an individual farmer or as a group of farmers, you can. Or if you want to see if planning commission would mind, or council would mind, us as a body trying to find a project to fit this, that's another way. Or we just pass this out to other groups that we know, like Mandolin or what's the name of it? Did they have a group for the food summit? The food summit group? I suppose.
Yeah, the Food Summit Group, they're in the process now trying to put together a food policy council. So, that's gonna be interesting. I like that idea. Yeah, does anybody have an objection if we do that?
A group that we may want to pull into it too is the FFA groups, because especially if we did this, got the school waste, the FFA could be involved in doing the actual compost. It could be, we could pull them into that.
That pulls in, that checks a lot of boxes as far as you're getting youth engaged, you're reducing our landfill, increasing composting, and that seems like there's a lot of positive boxes there to check. So the question would be then, do we want to do as a group individual, however, individually they come back to planning commission and say, hey, we want to send this to council, or do you just want to say, hey, council, this is something we're looking at? Can we?
And our next meeting is what, June the 1st, you said?
First 15th, yeah.
I'll take that off.
Here we go,
Me take it
communicating
on?
with the county
No,
council.
I can't take on a big project like that right now.
Eat chicken?
Do I have chickens? Yes, I got chickens last Friday. But I'm also doing upgrades on my chicken houses right now.
I'll reach out to the FFA teachers and see if they might be interested in getting involved and would give us any feedback. And I will also reach out to Mandolin and Amanda. And they've got a lot of contacts in the restaurant business too, because their feedback to me would be important as to how hard is it to separate food waste versus paper,
Right.
condiment wrappings, et cetera, that would come out of a restaurant. So, yeah, I'll find out what I can, come back at the June
When
meeting.
does this have to be submitted, Adam,
June
again?
26th.
Wow.
Yeah, they didn't really want to spend the money, I don't think, but
We'll show them.
we'll see.
So we'll go ahead and we'll put this again on the agenda for next.
Yes, sir, if you don't mind.
There
It'll be an update
we go.
to the USDA. All right. Recreational vehicle park discussion, and we do have one, or do we have two?
Actually, I have another one.
You have one?
By
Okay.
email from Chief Reader first.
All right. Honorable Planning Director and Commission Directors, in regards to promulgation of rules and ordinances, specifically pertaining to RV parks used as short-term transient living situations, I do not support development of any government interference in the operation of such. Already, there are DHEC guidelines on refuse disposal, sewage, occupancy, etc. Owners of such RV facilities operate in a free market system, and it behooves the owners to maintain their operation in a clean manner. We do not need more government interference. Does the commission have complaints on file regarding the need for interference? If you commission members are so concerned about trash and such, I suggest you have a deputies posted on the roads surrounding the main landfill. That's where the commission can demonstrate good use of citizen tax dollars. Thank you for letting me talk trash on the proposed RV park trash discussion. Red Gardner.
And I have one that came by email, the one I had to read it otherwise, but since I don't have a printer at the moment. This is from Keith Paul. He's a proprietor of Wells Highway RV Park. I object to the addition of any additional rules or fees being imposed upon RV parks for trash disposal. I am a small RV park owner, 7 spaces, and currently retired. The entire garbage generation in this park is approximately 7 tall kitchen dip bags per week when the park's full, which is seldom. I believe there is a point when a fee is needed or might be considered necessary, but should not be imposed upon an RV operator with fewer than 15 to 20 sites. Please be reasonable and make a decision based upon practicality. Keith Paul, proprietor.
All right.
So those are the public comments we have for that. His is actually in the city.
This is actually within the city.
We're good.
Oh, okay. All right, and in your supplementary material, we had listed things that we thought were important to intend to include in anything that we looked at. A definition of an RV park. The intent of it, is it a temporary thing, such as the folks that rent out a few places to do power people? Garbage and recycling facilities, wastewater utilities, setbacks, ready for travel, parking and maneuverability, access park models, a review process. Are these items and details that the Planning Commission wants staff to draft an ordinance for? All right, we open that up for discussion.
Well, let me start it out then. I have visited about 5 or 6 RV parks. Has anybody else?
I've stayed in RV parks all my life.
You are living in one now, or what?
No, I have visited them my entire life.
Oh, okay, all right. There seems to be a real interesting cross-section of RV parks, and I don't think it's worthwhile going into that at this point. But I want to encourage everybody, if we're going to deal with this subject in a meaningful way, to go look at a handful of them so that you can come back here and talk from a meaningful standpoint. I think we need to see what the other counties are doing and see what their ordinances are or how they're dealing with it. And I hope maybe we can get a consensus of opinion and ask Adam to do that for us. Also, I think we need to ask DHEC what kind of information they use to determine the size of their septic facilities for these RV parks, and do they monitor the number of spaces they have? In other words, a person has a tank for a size of 7 or let's say 10 spaces, and then in 2 years, they see business increase and they add another 5 or so spaces. Does DHEC come in and monitor, or is there a way of monitoring the number of spaces they have so that the size of the septic tank is in agreement with what's required for the number of spaces they have? And I think when you go around and you look at some of these, you really wonder how big a system they have and if they're having any problems. In any case, again, I want to encourage people to go around and visit some of these sites and take a hard look at them. That's...
I'm just, When you say RV park, does that mean that there is necessarily a system? Or does each parking place have a septic tank?
No,
No. So there must be some type of system that handles X number of campers?
Well-
Not necessarily, they can have a pump-out truck deal with it. The RVs are mostly self-contained.
Okay, okay.
you will see discharge pipes coming from them, the ones that I was at, and going into the ground, obviously going to a central system. But that's why we need to talk to DHEC. I'm not asking that somebody from DHEC come here, but I think that we can get some pretty quick answers if everyone is interested in that. If nobody cares, that's
I
fine.
just don't know what problem we're trying to solve.
No, okay, don't deal with it then.
During the comprehensive plan process, RV parks got brought up enough where we, like, kind of floated to the top, just because it seemed, we don't have any review process right now. If you want to come and put an RV in, you get a temporary pole, and you get septic power, and you have an RV. I think you can run 4 or 6 RVs off one septic tank, as per DHEC. So looking through that, with all the different things that kind of floated to the top of the comp plan process, I kind of just started a little mental checklist. Okay, well, this is what some people are talking about. From a wastewater perspective, in my head, what I just saw was must follow DHEC standards, just kind of reiterating as we do on any number of ways. Because, so for instance, our RV parks at the county, we have a dump station. When on your way out, you just pull over and you hook up and you dump out at the dump station. We don't have a septic tank or a sewage system or anything like that. So for wastewater and utilities are kind of interesting because if you take it off frame, or take it off wheels, you're sitting on the ground, well, then is it really an RV anymore? So then that was sort of for wastewater and utilities, I was just kind of thinking, we just kind of put it out there as far as their standards are ready for it. We don't have to kind of create any sort of new standard, just like we do several other places throughout our ordinance. We kind of say, hey, there are rules, you gotta follow them, they're just not our rules. Stormwater, for instance.
And I think the original conversation, wasn't it the fact that we have a law against people living in RVs, but we have people living in RVs
Yeah, it's.
in sometimes multiple units per, so we were trying to figure out how to deal with those folks that are permanently in RVs. Does that make it an RV park? And then therefore there are things they should be following.
Well, that's complicated because we don't have affordable housing. And you'd rather have them sleeping in the car than the RV?
Oh, no, I'm not, I'm just saying, we have a law, we're not enforcing it. Do we need to remove the law? And then say, but if you're going to live in your RV, you do need to make sure that you meet DHEC standards, so that if we have an officer who walks up and it's just the little thing doesn't go into the ground, it just goes out behind the trailer, he has something to enforce.
Well, it's a federal or state.
For the 6 months?
Yeah.
That's a federal. So FEMA, HUD regulates RVs. RVs are not houses. RVs are a VIN number, they have a tag, the tag says a vehicle. You're not supposed to live in more than 180 days. There's no way to enforce that ever. You can't,
I mean, we've got an instance right on Oak Grove School Road at this farm, or whatever it is right there, past the school. He's got 3 RVs, and I think one's his parents, or it's like 3 old people. I mean, that's where they live, in 3 RVs on his property. Are we gonna tell them they can't live there anymore? I mean,
Oh, no,
and he's put septic tanks, at least I remember 3 holes being dug, so each one of those had its own septic tank, and it had its own power. I mean, it's not running out extension cords or nothing, and it's not just running out. They actually have set up, and they're living in them, and they're actual RVs because they still have their tires, everything on them. They can hook up to them and drive them, pull them off if they want to, but they've been there for over a year. and he keeps it clean, it's not, I mean,
Yeah,
fine.
I think it comes down to a safety aspect too, in that, you have to make sure that emergency vehicles can get in any RV park, and there's some sort of expectations if there's a fire or something, and, a fire truck has to pull in there as to what they're dealing with, whether it's electrical or how much room they have between the next RV or whatever.
we sort of have the two extremes right close to Stacy and my house. There's, on the corner, directly across from Leonard and Claire's house, across from the voting precinct house, there are 2 RVs that have been set up. They're living out of
On
them.
Hunt Road?
On Hunt Road?
Yeah.
Yep. They do a good job, they decorate, I mean, it's very nice. I don't know anything about the sanitation things, but it looks like
There's
they
septic tanks
do a
there.
great job. On the other hand, if you go towards Clemson, down Conross Road, the road towards Conross, on the right there are some very rapidly aging RVs that have been there as long as I've been coming to Takina, which is 1978. And they have added and added and added, and if the one in the middle ever caught fire, there would be no fire truck to that thing.
Right there at Heart Circle?
It's right there on the right for the Amdro-C, whatever it is, the little warehouses just past the boat dock, or the boat ramp.
Yeah,
There's
there's
they're
one
on the right,
both sides.
and it's growing on the
Yeah.
left, right. There used to be nothing but warehouses, but the RV number is going up on the left as well. And would you bet you could get a fire truck or an ambulance in there to the middle of that one on the road?
Well,
on
the
right.
fire truck is not gonna drive to it, they're gonna pull the hose to it. So as long as the fire truck has access into the park, they're gonna pull the hose. They pull the hoses from the front of my chicken houses all the way back to the back of my chicken house. So,
Fire.
yes, when we had a stacking shed fire, they pulled hoses all the way to the back. So, I mean, the truck doesn't have to get right beside whatever it is. And that one's not really
I mean, it sure is.
big. I mean, they could even park on the road and be able to pull out there. I don't think fire would.
Does it have medical access? I haven't been by there, but
Oh,
can an
yeah.
ambulance
I
get
mean,
to
you
each
can
one of
drive
them?
cars down between them, so if you can drive a car, you can get an ambulance down through there. I mean, because they drive and park at their,
They do
At the
drive and
camper.
park, but they have to go to a center access point. They can't just turn in at any point off the road.
But you go back to what everybody's been talking about here lately is blight.
is what?
Blight, where it's just a nasty place. It's not.
It's not livable.
It's livable, but I mean, 'cause people are actually living there, but it's just a nasty, sort of like Utica Mill Village. I mean, some of those places are just, people actually live there, but they shouldn't be.
They don't have other options
That's
in
what I'm
this
saying,
county.
how do we regulate?
We don't.
We don't.
You know, we
I
gotta-
agree with that. Blight does not concern me as much as safety.
Right, so going with this, the biggest thing that comes across my desk is, it looks like a house, it functions as a house, it's an RV. Take it off the wheels, attach a deck to it, do all manner of things to it, and you wanna put 20 in there, and all of a sudden, it's a housing development. It's not an RV park. It's a technical RV park, but it is a housing development.
Sort of like Foxwood Hills.
Foxwood Hill's slightly different because each of those are personal lots. Those are individual lots. It's not a centralized, it's not one owner and a bunch of
Right.
renters. And that's like one per lot. That would be, at least in my head, somewhat exempt on this. As far as parking maneuverability, in my head, it was just making sure that it was, you had, be able to drive around it. Kind of thing. Not meeting our housing regulations, so to speak, if you were just gonna have, because that's a 50-foot right of way, that's a lot of asphalt or gravel pour. Park models, are y'all familiar with park models at all? It looks like, it's like a cabin, but it's not a cabin, it's an RV. I mean, it looks like a house. Well, they're technically RVs, they're supposed to get tagged, they do have VIN numbers. You don't see a lot of those pulling in to places, although I imagine you could see them. I'd like to be able to look at those slightly differently if possible. So these are the different items that we have up here. are these things that you all would be interested, since they got brought up in the comprehensive plan process, they got brought up in the planning commission when you all kind of assembled your list of priorities at the beginning? Are these topics that you all would like some more in-depth on?
I would be interested to see how DHEC handles it and monitors it, only because if the RVs are set up to be more permanent structures, and then they are expanded into more permanent structures, as opposed to RVing, where you pull in, you camp, you maintain your own waste, and then as you pull out, you go to a dump station. Where these, you aren't pulling out and dumping every week or so, they're actually sitting there. But then, like Mr. Smith said, if it starts growing, does DHEC come back and remonitor that system?
You have to get a permit. Okay, if you need power, then you can only get temporary power unless you get a septic tank. You can probably help me with this. A septic tank permit. So DHEC would tell you how many you could put there, and then if you saying you're gonna have 5 spots, well, you're gonna have 5 power hookups. If you need more power hookups, then you're gonna have to go back and get DHEC permits for
But you don't necessarily
larger.
go back and notify anybody when you get extra power.
You can't get extra power from Blue Ridge if you don't have.
Sure you can. You run an electrical line from one pole to the next
I was
pole.
gonna say, if you got a buddy
You-
and you're real close friends with somebody, yeah, you can run 5 or 6 more on there.
But most of these places like this, somebody's paying for the power. So most of them put up, or an actual RV park is gonna put up power.
Yes, an actual RV park.
And I
definitely.
think that's what brought us to this whole conversation is, do we need to define what an RV park is and then say, you now have enough here to meet the definition of an RV park? Are you meeting these standards? Because if, like what you're talking about, yes, you're right, you don't have to have any kind of permit to extend power from point A to point B. All you gotta have is a meter, and then from then on, if nobody turns you in and nobody says anything, go as far as you got good electricians.
That's correct. So we have an instance where somebody pulled a power pole for a chicken, a chicken coop, he called it. He's doing like organic chickens or whatever is what he told do. And he had a little, not the greatest back and forth with his neighbors, and he's got 6 or 7 RVs just tied onto the chicken coop. Well, there's no chicken coops. There's no chicken.
Might have been one when he said.
And that was a dock. And we don't have, like, from our perspective, from the county's perspective, we have the power issue. That is a building codes issue. But, as far as usage of it like that, it doesn't check any boxes for me. It doesn't.
There's nothing to say that those RVs can't be there.
That's right.
Which goes to my concern of, is the runoff of septic. If they become a permanent structure and not a, hey, they're here for this week camping and they're gone next week, or they're here for a music concert, or they're here for whatever, if they truly are permanent and they start growing, then it becomes a health issue. Does DHEC monitor that? And that's my question is asking that question to DHEC of, at what point do you monitor and not monitor? Is it by a neighbor complaint, or what?
It is.
And then what does DHEC do? Because in my experience, DHEC doesn't do anything. From things that we have to, they fuss at you, but they don't. As far as permitting, they might, but where we had the problems with the guy that we're not following things on cutting down trees. And the guy told me, he said, I'm sorry, I'm in class. I don't have time to go out there. Don't call me again. And that was the extent
Well, and they're
of his
extremely
enforcement
short-staffed
of
in the state of South Carolina.
what?
They're extremely short-staffed in the state of South Carolina
Well,
as
I
well.
get that, but that's not gonna get me over the fact that if there's somebody upstream from me and there's a 100-year flood and that guy's got 5 RVs behind his chicken coop.
Right, well, and
And
that's
it
my
washes
point.
out their septic lines or whatever they're doing.
That's my point is that one, how often does DHEC monitor? Do they monitor? And then is there some other entity in place that, because DTEC is so short-staffed right now, And they've been short-staffed for a year and a half with all the retirees that they had 2 years ago.
How often do you want the county to monitor these things?
And I'm just saying that if there is a neighbor complaining, where do they go?
And that, I think that's what what Mr. Chapman is asking for.
So International Property Maintenance Code, which is adopted by the county, gives the code enforcement officer. We have a code enforcement officer, his name's Mike, just to add to the Mike's. And he does a great job going in there and identifying, and we have a really good working relationship with our local DHEC office here. And we schedule like basically every other week. They go out and they set aside time to say, okay, Mike will go out and say, okay, well, there's a building codes violation, there's a DHEC issue, there's a zoning issue. We'll go out there as a whole and address it at that point. So it's by complaint, to answer that question.
But you need a code that he can enforce, right?
So from my perspective, this would just say, DHEC has standards, you gotta follow them, as just kind of because people do call and say, hey, I wanna build an RV park in Oconee County, where are my regulations for it, where are my rules? And so I'll say, okay, well, you gotta do this, you gotta call, Walhalla Water, you gotta call Pioneer, kind of things, just kind of checklisting it out there. But creating a framework for which people can create RV parks is also helpful in some regards. None of this would be,
Mike's got something.
Can I go back to my original comment and say, maybe we need to see what some of the other counties are doing? And rather than shotgunning in the air, and see what they're doing and how they're dealing with it, and then ask some questions to DHEC and come back with some answers from DHEC, and then maybe go from there. Because this was brought up at the strategic session by the county council members to deal with RV parks. Go ahead, Frankie.
Back in the 70s, people were living in mobile homes a lot with wheels on them. Was those ever considered RVs? Because people couldn't hook up to them and pull them off?
No, so mobile homes are a specific thing, they're built to the HUD code. RVs are also a specific thing, and they're built to a different code. They are different.
But I mean, what I'm getting at, when mobile homes first started coming in any area, they had no rules, had no regulations, they had to make something up, saying this is what you have to do, because they were all on wheels. They wasn't permanent structures, I mean.
They weren't underpinned, they weren't attached to the ground.
They weren't anything, they were just sitting there on 6 wheels.
Yep.
And with bricks, blocks on each end to keep them from seesawing. We can't, in this county, we have such a low number of affordable homes. We just can't start telling people that you can't do this, you can't live in this RV because the federal government says you can't. We don't ever listen to them anyway. So, but we do need to make sure that if they're gonna live in these things, they need to do it safely. It needs to be a safe environment that they say we can get a fire truck down into the community, just like we did with mobile homes. They did the regulations where you have to get.
With homes in general, right. Yeah.
Right, where you have to get safety, get an ambulance, get fire trucks. We do need to be concerned about the waste, the septic, the water, and all to make sure it's done properly. But again, going back to Mike, we do need to get DHEC, find out what their regulations are on this. Check with other counties. I know we're not the only county in South Carolina or Georgia or North Carolina that's maybe dealt or dealing with the same type of stuff. Give us some ideas of what they're doing, but we still need to be careful and not regulate these things to where people can't live in them, because then our homeless population is gonna triple.
Could you?
Go ahead.
You know, quite frankly, when you get into this RV situation, this is for a lot of people, it's the last step to homelessness. And we need to recognize that. But we also need to address the safety issue and the sanitary issue.
In some cases, it
And-
might be the first step to home ownership as well.
Well, it could be the reverse of it, because when I drove through and looked at some of these and walked through them, there's some darn expensive automobiles out there. in front of these RVs. So it could be the reverse, that they're going into the home state. But you can look at the reverse too and say, this may be the last stop before homelessness.
I've mentioned my, right now, only concern is finding out how DHEC handles and monitors this. And I've heard people say that, hey, we don't want to do too much over government regulation on this because this is maybe they have no other place to go. But what about the person who has no other place to go, so they don't want to complain that their kids are playing in raw sewage in the back behind the RV because they may get kicked out of the park. And so they have nowhere to turn. And so all I'm saying is that we need to see how DHEC, I think, handles, and if there are any gaps, so that we can protect that person who it is their last place to be, and they don't want to open their mouth, but their kids can't play outside because of the raw sewage that's falling out.
Mr. Chapman, would it be, do you need a motion, or how could we ask you to find out from DHEC what their standards are? Address them as the barest minimum, and then check with some other counties and see if there are some other safety, sanitary regulations that you see that might be supportive of DHEC with the little expansion rather than the barest minimum, and then come back to us with sort of a draft ordinance that, can you do that? I know that's a lot to ask, but could
Wanna
you?
make that motion, sure?
Okay, I will make that motion, that you find out from DHEC, write that as a bare minimum, include that as a bare minimum, and then check with some other counties, pull out what you feel like addresses safety and issues that you might need to enforce this code, and then come back to us with a draft ordinance 2 meetings from now?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Discussion, excuse me. Okay.
I would like to ask you to have an emphasis on, when you're looking at these different aspects, on things that we're actually getting complaints about, and not just, let's put everything in a big basket.
The only thing I'm concerned about is, the only thing is sewage. I mean, if everything else, I think, will handle itself. And the only thing that convinced me was when you said about the children, but I don't want to drive a bunch of people out of the only home they have.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't either, but I don't
Well,
want that
every
to
single
become-
thing that we require these people to do is adding cost, which is going to, that person is just going to add on to the cost of the lot rent. And these people can't barely afford to put it there now, probably. So what are they going to do?
If it's that kind of park. And then on the other hand, there's the kind of parks that are true RV parks, and they're all the whistles and bells and things like that. And they're going to survive and do it right because their clientele is going to be insistent of it. But I'm concerned about making sure we're protecting
the public.
the public, the consumer, that it is their last place to stay, and they're assuming that things are okay until they get moved in, and now they're finding that they're not okay, that their dog that they just let out to go to the bathroom is coming in because they're wallowing in something in the back behind the back lot, and the kids can't play because they're wallowing in something behind the back lot, and they're afraid to say anything. And it may be that DHEC handles all this, and it may be that DHEC says, no, we put in a 480 gallon per day system, and that's the last we saw of it until somebody complains.
So what I'll do is so Mike's our code enforcement guy, and he's got, I think, 112 cases going, they were saying, some way, shape, or form. I'll find out from him, because he sees the worst, for sure. And we shouldn't make any sort of ordinance based upon the worst. But between the building officials, other people who see a lot of the county, and our complaints that we have on file already, we'll certainly look at that. But we can definitely focus on the wastewater, and I'll find out, we'll see if maybe someone from DHEC don't want to come talk to us at the next meeting. and then we'll find some other examples that focuses on safety and other things of that nature. If that's any.
Could you get that guy to come speak to us?
I'll try.
Okay, we still have a motion.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second on the table. Do we need to amend that motion before?
I think your initial motion carries everything. that
Carries
was said
everything?
there.
Okay. All right. Is everybody okay? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you, sir. All right, unfinished business. New business. Do I have a motion? We've got 14, but
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
since I don't think we need a second vote. I know we don't need to vote, but, all right. Thank you, sir.